I'm just admiring the stuff on my desk here. I got Governor Walz for Gitmo. I think that was a gift someone gave me. And then this is a old Action for Liberty mug, Action for Liberty, and it's got "Not My Tyrant" with Tim Walz in the back. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, and the lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Our sponsor today is Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. I really, truly mean that. Like, when you're in the Twin Cities, there's this urge for us to be in, like, the part of Minnesota that's actually not crazy, and that's St. Cloud. And if you're looking for a guy in the cabinetry business, go see my friend at Steve at Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. This is gonna be an interesting show. I think we got some pretty amazing stuff to talk about. A lot to get to, and I want to keep it within an hour. Joining me is Action for Liberty President and former Representative Erik Mortensen. It's been so long since I've had you. I'm glad our lunch on Friday, I was able to convince you to do more media appearances.
Yeah, happy to do it. It's going to be an interesting topic. It's I don't know, has there ever been a gubernatorial race when we're 10 months out and there's not even a candidate running on both parties?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. So let's bring this
Usual.
up right away. I'm going to show you this because I asked Grok that question, which is exactly what you probably would do, right? So I'm going to go pull this up because Grok had an answer. This is very unprecedented. Just so people understand, Tim Walz dropped out of the race for governor, a third unprecedented term, last Monday. So that's 8 days ago. And since then, the Democrats have no real mainstream candidate. So this is what Grok says when asked that question. It says, basically, no, the Minnesota Democrat farmer. And by the way, the question I wrote is, has the Minnesota Democrat Farmer Labor Party ever been without a candidate for governor in January of an election year? It says, no, the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party has never been without a candidate for governor in January of an election year since its formation in 1944. Now, Mort, AI is getting better, okay? But does it really know how to read that question? I don't know, to be honest with you. It kind of finishes with like, there is big prospects right now, and almost giving credit like there are candidates. So, it would be a ton of work, and quite frankly, let's just be honest, there could be a candidate that emerges already this week. But you brought it up. You brought it up.
We've seen it. I'm sure your audience has seen it. You've seen it. Like the domain Amy Klobuchar for governor or whatever the hell the domain was. Like a bunch of those domains are gone. So it sure leads us to believe it's going to be Amy Klobuchar, which is interesting. She gets all sorts of crossover votes for some reason. Like conservatives out there think she's some sort of like moderate for some reason, but whatever.
Right. Sorry, I'm trying to share on Facebook and everything's going haywire on me. She gets crossover votes. She was considered a moderate person at some point, and she's as far leftist as like Tim Walz, which I almost could make the argument she might be worse than him if she gets in, which is hard. Like, who would think that you could be worse than Tim Walz? Well, you've been in politics, since the 2018 election cycle. You remember this. Tim Walz emerged on the scene as like a moderate guy from like southern Minnesota, from Rexon Cow's country. And he hasn't been that way.
Well, that's their trick, right? That's the Democrat trick. And, in the classes we teach, you say, hey, nobody ever runs as a moderate to then gets more hardcore. I think the liberals in Minnesota do it all the time. Look at Brad Tabke running around Shakopee here, claiming he's some moderate, claiming he's some pro-gun guy when he sees the NRA bumper sticker in a house he's going to go knock. And then they get in there and they're completely nuts. And at this point, Walz, I think he just embraces it. Like he doesn't even try to be a moderate now. And what I think makes Amy dangerous is she's kind of that classical Brad Tabke type or the 2018 Tim Walz type. The, oh, shucks, one Minnesota, I'm a moderate, but she would not govern that way whatsoever.
Right. Well, okay. I want to dive a little bit more into Amy and maybe her decision, because we act as if that's a foregone conclusion, and I'm not certain is if we kind of peel back the layers here. But I do want to show people what is on the Campaign Finance Board website. So if you're not in Minnesota politics or not very involved in politics, you have to understand a true candidate isn't a candidate until there's a filing period, and that's in late May to early June. It's 2-week period, okay? And that determines who's on the primary ballot and the general election ballot. If you want to run for office, you have to actually file in that period of time. Right now, the only filed candidates are people that actually started campaign finance accounts. And so there are 3 that are listed in the DFL. One is Bill Gates Jr., okay? Not related to the Bill Gates we all think of. There's a bunch of independent candidates. The DFL has Old Savior, who always runs, and they have Chris Seymour, who I think has run multiple times. None of these guys are mainstream candidates. Now there is all the campaign finance reports are due. I think it's either February 1st or the end of the month. So we won't see the internal workings of a lot of these campaigns, but some have actually reported early and you get just a summary of it. So Bill Gates Jr. does list $383.20 of receipts and expenditures. And just judging by this, I'm guessing what that is in kind
Mhm.
receipts because I don't see any of these categories. So I'm guessing he got an in kind donation, maybe from himself, and spent 383. In the world of politics, that's not a serious campaign.
Yeah.
Scott Jensen's already reported for those that are wondering, 360 or 383,000 in revenue, close to 389. And then Mike Newcomb, $250,000 as an independent candidate. We've actually interviewed him on this show. So, in that campaign, and by the way, over $100,000 in expense, which you would imagine that means he's getting some pros running his campaign. So those are the only campaign finance reports that we have at this time. We know Tim Walz raised millions, right? And that could be used to give to it. If he closes that account, he can give that away
Mhm.
to a
Yep.
bunch of candidates, actually. So that's where we stand right now. There really is no mainstream candidate. And more, this is the way I look at it is, you know, no one knew that this really was like Tim Walz like getting smacked across the face and having to live with the political reality in a very short period of time. Mostly, I think the final icing on the cake was the Nick Shirley video, but certainly there was a
Yeah.
lot leading up to it.
Yeah, and that's I applaud Nick Shirley for his efforts. I think that's great. I'm kinda kicking myself for not just going down there and doing something similar. I've done stuff like it in the past, but whatever. He did a great job, but we've been exposing this stuff for years. I think that's the frustrating thing is this isn't news. It's being presented as news all across the globe, but we've known for 10 years. We've been calling it out at Action for Liberty for like 7 or 8 years. I mean, it's a little disappointing that finally some YouTuber came in and made this thing global, but whoever, whatever, I'm just glad it happened. But it makes you wonder, nobody else is stepping up to the plate, and I have to imagine it's because nobody else wants to get thrusted into the center of this whole debacle. And I
Yes.
think they saw what happened with Kamala Harris, just a year and change ago, how they just like did a candidate swap the last second. And I think Trump kind of blew her out of the water. But, they would probably argue it was pretty close. So why don't we just avoid all the slings, all the arrows, and we'll just swoop in sometime in like maybe this spring, because they get the filing deadline, and someone's gonna announce, and it's gonna be a big name, I have no doubt. And if Amy Klobuchar was maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years older, she probably would be announcing soon, but she's got to be thinking, okay, if I do this seat swap, which I think is what they're going to do, her and Tim Walz swap seats, what does her political career look like after that? Like, are you going to go back to the US Senate? I'm sure
She's got
she's trying to
ambitions for
figure out,
president.
what do I do after this, the whole governor thing,
Mhm. I mean, she's got ambitions for president. That seems to be the best stepping stone for
which
that
would be,
office.
yeah, which would be great. God, her campaign for president was a disaster, and she can't message worth a damn. How many times she told that? "How does your hair fare in a snowstorm, Trump?" And, like, just pathetic.
I before we go any further on Amy Klobuchar, you reminded me that there was this video I sent to you yesterday
Yeah.
when Action for Liberty flew the banner out in front of over the Capitol, and just for the story. Paul Gazelka, the Rhino Republican Senate leader, was just ignoring the calls for us to end the wildly fraudulent CCAP program. This is 2019, May 2019. And of course, it was falling on deaf ears with Tim Walz. So this is a report from
Now,
KSTP.
speaking of planes, a mysterious airplane has been flying over
Mysterious.
the Capitol today that simply says, Walz Gazelka, stop funding fraud.
And just so people kind of get a little backstory on that, we were fighting against the child care fraud going into 2020. We had to pivot and abandon that issue as our forefront issue because we were living under COVID tyranny due to Tim Walz and
Yeah.
feckless Republicans that were helping him out.
Yep.
So, like, that was the liberty issue of our lifetime. But we were fighting against the CCAP fraud, trying to end that fraudulent program. So, yeah, it was a good point that, like, this has been discussed for quite some time, and a lot of us have been fighting it. But I'm glad to see it blow up and get national attention.
Yeah,
Mort,
and I was thinking about this yesterday because when I got elected and I authored a bill that would just kill the whole CCAP program. Because if you remember, going back in time, 2019, Fox News reported it. The whistleblower said $100 million a year is getting shipped over to Somalia and suitcases full of cash. And that was the accusation in a nutshell. And this is a program that at that time was about $200 million a year in funding. So you're talking half of it being fraudulent, according to these whistleblowers back in the day. And I remember introducing that bill and even having Republican legislators, Republican delegates confronting me, going, "What are you doing? We can't get rid of this program. What about daycare?" And I just think, I don't know what every generation, other than maybe one, has been raised without the government providing their daycare, but for some reason
right.
the government needs to do daycare now on top of everything else. And I would ask people, okay, if 50% fraudulent, if that's acceptable to you, what's unacceptable? Is it 60? Is it 70? Is it 80? What if it's 90% fraud and
Right.
only 10% goes to people who actually need the help? At that point, can we kill it? And now some of the reports coming out make it sound like it is closer to that 90%. But it's amazing when you see, or even push for a reduction in government, how even a lot of Republicans or conservatives, the ones that feel the pinch, they just, they're all up in arms. And there's all these sacred cows. And I think if we're ever going to reduce the size of government, whether it's CCAP, whether it's taxes, whatever, there can be no sacred cows. Just across the board, chop this thing by, in my view, 50%. I think the state budget should be like, 30 billion.
Yeah, that's too high for me, buddy.
That'd still be like half. Maybe it's 25 now, but like cut that thing in half and most people would have no idea, especially if they
Right.
turn the news off, they would not notice anything other than their paycheck would be bigger.
Right, and the producers in the state would actually have a ton more money to hire and expand their business, because they're the ones that are paying that tax bill. So, let's go back to Amy Klobuchar for a second. I think you make up a really good point. Like, do you want to inherit this fraud mess? Like right now, she's what is she? A year, going to go on year 2 of her
Mhm.
third term. I'm guessing fourth term, whatever it's been,
Fourth term, yeah.
fourth term, and that's 6 years. And
Mhm.
so it's pretty easy. Collect that paycheck, collect that prestige. You're still part of the club in Washington, D.C. Now, she might make the calculation. She can win in Minnesota. That's true. But she also might be making that calculation. It's not looking that good. Now, I'll throw this at you. And we're not, Mort and I, don't come to us to figure out what the Democrats are going to do. Like, we know the Democrats that well. Republicans will have some insight. We'll go through the candidates in a second. But this is an interesting story I picked up, and this is from the Fence Post. I guess it's for Ag News and Information. I'm assuming it's a Minnesota paper. Craig would love to be on the ticket with Klobuchar. They got a statement it's from Anaheim, California. Representative Angie Craig, the ranking member of the House Agricultural Committee, who is a candidate for the Democrat nomination in the Senate race to succeed retiring Senator Tina Smith, told the Hagstrom Report here Sunday that she would, quote, love to be on the ballot with Senator Amy Klobuchar if Klobuchar runs for governor. Quote, I'd love to be on the ballot with Senator Klobuchar, Craig said in response to a question from the Hagstrom Report after she and Klobuchar were part of a panel discussion here Sunday with Senate Agricultural Committee Chairman John Boozman of Arkansas. Okay, You see that one coming? Uh, and Craig has kind of got this appeal as a moderate as well. She's in some regards taken the Amy Klobuchar model.
Mhm.
Peggy Flanagan, her opponent for U.S. Senate, not at all.
Yeah, yeah,
Identity politics to like the nth degree.
yeah.
So that is fascinating because if Klobuchar does do that, um, there is such a shakeup here. Then Peggy's the only candidate for Senate. Does Ellison make a lateral move? Does Ellison stay away from the governor's race? Does Steve Simon make another race? If it seems to me that there's going to be a lot of big moves, and that's probably what's going on with the Democrats right now, and that's why they haven't announced. Plus, this is also new to them. They did not expect Tim Walz dropping out.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. So, I mean, if I just look at like the Democrat field for US Senate, right now you pretty much have Peggy and Angie Craig. Angie Craig is probably not going to win that primary because the DFL base has like lost their mind and they love Peggy Flanagan getting dressed up like she's Somalian or, she just like changes her outfits on the day based on the audience she's in front of. So I'm convinced that Peggy would win that primary. And I wonder if that's what Angie's calculating is, man, this isn't looking good. So maybe she's hedging her bets with that thing. And because clearly she wants to stay in office. All these guys want to stay in some elected office once they get in, with
Right.
a very, very rare exception out there. So that is interesting. I could totally see them doing that.
Okay, well, there you go. And it would be a big shakeup because I can't
Yeah.
imagine someone would get in the Senate race this late in the game. So Peggy runs away with it. Now, very beatable in my opinion. Do you think the Democrats can get away from this fraud issue though? Like, is it going to plague the whole ticket?
I think that's incumbent upon organizations like Action for Liberty to keep this in the forefront. And you can't rely on the old traditional media to do it. Your show should do it. Like this thing needs to get in front of people all day, all the time. And rumor has it Nick Shirley's coming out with a new video tomorrow at 10. I don't know if that's Eastern time or Central time, but I saw him post about it. And I talked to a legislator yesterday who has some insight, and they said this thing is going to be 10 times worse than
Mhm.
the first video. So I can't wait for tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Again, whether that's Central or Eastern, I don't remember what the tweet said, but that's going to be super interesting.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's get to the Republican side here. This is interesting. Action for Liberty just published an article. Megha Jesse, the author, updated breakdown on Minnesota governor candidates. 13 Republicans running. You could tell it's got Jesse's punchy commentary in it. So let's start with the first one. Peggy Bennett, somebody you served with. I'm sure you guys were going out and having lunch all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Peg-
We're tight.
She's been in office for over a decade. She's a self-described thumb twiddler. Um, she is the most recent to announce. I know you and me and some of the people on the threads that we're part of were like, "What? Like, why is she
Yeah.
getting in? It doesn't make sense." She's a pathetic 45.83% on the 2025 A4L scorecard. It has a lifetime rating of an F. She doesn't really seem to have much she's bringing to the table other than the fact she was a teacher, and they'll probably be some of her messaging. What are you thinking on Peggy Bennett?
I'm looking at all these candidates, and people ask me all the time, "Who do you like? Who do you like?" And then some people even ask, "Who does Action for Liberty like?" And it's like, "Hey, A4L can't campaign for anybody, like, right? We can't electioneer." If people want to ask my opinion personally, I chalk all these people up with under two categories. Are they likely to remain principled? And do they have a viable path? And Peggy Bennett to me is definitely not principled, and I see no viable path. So to me, she is not exciting whatsoever.
Well, okay, let me ask you this: why is she running? I mean, I know you
I'm
close.
assuming I don't even know. I mean, I do think this will be something interesting for folks. I do know for a fact, and you know this, um, that these people will like coordinate with each other, right? These different campaigns. So they'll try to like consume the energy, and there'll be backdoor deals, or and maybe this is what's happening where Peggy is turning to, I don't know, who's the swampiest candidate for governor. Boy, it's kind of
I
a
guess Robbins,
toss up.
maybe it
What's
is a
that?
toss up. Maybe Robbins. That's a tough one.
Oh yeah, yeah, maybe Robbins. Maybe her and Robbins have a deal behind the scenes where it's like, hey, at convention is likely where they do these things. Let's consolidate our delegates behind whoever's got more momentum. And I'm assuming if this is what is happening, that Peggy would be like a plant to try to secure some delegates that maybe don't love Kristen Robbins, but they like Peggy Bennett. And then closer to convention, Peggy will go, "Oh, I'm backing out and I endorse, Kristen Robbins," or whoever she might be striking a deal with. 'Cause that's the only thing that makes any sense to me is there's deals getting struck behind the scenes to gobble up delegates that they feel like they can pass those delegates on to another candidate who might have more traction.
Well, let me tell a quick story about Peggy Bennett that you and I are both privy to. So, Lisa Hanson, who was actually the person that went to jail because of her defiance of Governor Walz's illegal orders to shut down her coffee bistro. So, Lisa Hanson did this big rally basically for a legal fund. This was in Albert Lee. I'm guessing it was like May of 2021. I know you and I were both speakers at it.
Yep.
And Peggy Bennett wouldn't come, and she wouldn't publicly support her constituent who was literally being prosecuted for Governor Walz's illegal order. So if you want to learn a little something about her, there you go. Great to see Brad Ganser in the comments here. All right, let's move on to the next candidate, and we've got Lisa Demuth, another person that you served with. Lisa's running mate's already been announced. It's Ryan Wilson. And Jesse starts out right away. Rhino Speaker Lisa Demuth has an awful legislative record, specifically in 2025, where she cut a deal with Tim Walz behind closed doors to pass the second largest budget in Minnesota history, using corrupt, unconstitutional, fraud-ridden omnibus bills. At the beginning of the session, Demuth cut a deal with Democrats to seat radical leftist Brad Tapke, despite the massive election fraud issue in the district. If you guys don't remember this, that election was decided by 14 votes, but 21 ballots were just thrown away in the trash can, and they certified the election of Brad Tapke basically for some bullshit deal she cut with the Democrats. She refused to sign the Never Again bill, also killed the Never Again bill on the House floor through a procedural move. Her score in the 2025 AFRL scorecard was 20.83%. Now, she did show up to the Morrison County GOP Forum, which is a really crowded stage. That image that's on the thumbnail of this show, that is from that. It seems to me that her move to have Ryan Wilson, because it's just not normal to usually announce right away who your running mate is. It's her trying to get conservative delegate appeal and donors. That's the way I read it. What do you think about Demuth?
Well, again, just to kick it off, viability probably has viability. Principled? No. I mean, come on. I remember sitting in the House floor and watching Lisa Demuth vote for the Crown Act. The Crown Act, boy, I can't even remember what the acronym stands for, but it prevents hair discrimination, because I know I can't leave my house without talking to somebody who's like, I am so sick of being discriminated against because of my hair, my natural hair.
Right.
So when she voted for that, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I don't see her as principled at all. In fact, Action for Liberty awarded her Rhino of the Year in the House because it was a tie at 20.83 for like 6 people. But she's the speaker. She's the leader. So, if she wants to get all the credit for whatever good thing she claims she did, well, then she should get all the negativity for the things that she didn't do. And I talked to Ryan, and Ryan Wilson's a super nice guy, super likable guy, and he appeals to the base. And he told me that his goal is to make Lisa Demuth an either 8.8 or 9.0 out of 10 candidate for me as a delegate by the time May comes around. And I think I said, well, so somehow you're going to turn Lisa Demuth into Thomas Massey in 6 months? Good luck with that. I don't think that's going to happen.
For full disclosure, Ryan Wilson refuses to respond back to a request to put him on the show so that he could defend Lisa Demuth. So just so you guys know, he's not willing to step up to the plate and talk about that campaign, which is ridiculous. Instead, he's making the phone calls to donors and delegates to try to win their support without actually facing the record. And just FYI,
And I just want to say, like Jay Reeves here, he just commented, Ryan's a great guy. And, just to be clear, a lot of my commentary here isn't like critiquing them as like a person. I think probably a lot of the field are like generally good people, nice people, but are they principled? Do they have the backbone? Do they have political courage? And then do they have a viable path? So I do agree. I think Ryan's a nice guy, well intended, but I think he hooked his horse onto a very strange wagon here.
Well, and I honestly, used to think the same way, but, I have very low respect for a guy that won't at least respond, you know? So,
Fair.
make up some bullshit excuse, but, like, whatever, like, you obviously know our show has great reach inside the Republican ranks. It should be an audience you care about, but you don't but see, I know why he wouldn't do it. The campaign wouldn't want him to do it because he wouldn't be able to answer to these things. Like, literally, her record's terrible. She's a rhino, so
Yeah.
and she cuts terrible deals with Democrats. So,
Yeah, I mean, it
what
should have been
how
we
do you
called
defend
this
those
out.
things?
We called this out, and I'm sure you did too. What was it? 6 weeks before the end of session, the Democrats agreed to the Republicans' budget. Like, that never happens. These
Yeah,
budgets are always, like, the last second, all the deals get made. As soon as they came to terms 6 weeks before the deadline, it just screamed, "This is a terrible budget." The Democrats must have been like, yeah, please, we'll take that budget because they knew it was so much in their favor."
and it was essentially Tim Walz's budget. Like, it was the
Right.
same
Yeah, it was
numbers.
even higher than Tim Walz's
Republicans
proposed budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to I just say the same because the revenue was or the expenditures were different this biennium versus next, but it's so ridiculous what they did. Okay, let's go to the next candidate. We've got Raul Estrada and Joe Liberty, another candidate that emerged right away with a lieutenant governor candidate. Raul is in the community and is anti-establishment political activist. He's an American Indian who pushes back against the nonsense native studies that students are learning from an old white liberal professor with green hair. Estrada is a constitutional conservative. He has signed the AFRL's Never Again pledge, which says governor can never unilaterally shut down the state again. He's committed to preventing any future governor from locking our state down. And does it say? Oh, so Joe Liberty's actual name is Joe Kincaid. He goes by Joe Liberty. I've run into Joe quite a bit during like COVID time. Seems like a perfectly nice gentleman. I don't know Raul as well, but I've run into him as well. I think probably most people are going to assume they're a second tier kind of campaign. Probably not going to raise a ton of money, but maybe they have something to offer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so principled. I bet these guys be very principled. I've never met Raul. I've seen Joe Liberty around for years, especially during the COVID tyranny. He was very involved in all that. Um, so I think principled, they probably would be very principled. Viability, I thought I read they're not even raising money. And, on one hand, it's like, well, that's admirable. Let's get politics out of money. That on the surface sounds great. And then the real world slaps you in the face and you realize I have to get a message out to people. I have to find
Hmm.
those 400,000 people that voted for Trump that didn't vote for Scott Jensen. Like, you have to be out there building your lists and printing literature and doing Facebook ads. You need money. So as
Yeah.
much as really like Joe Liberty, I don't know really anything about Raul. I've never met him, but viable, I just don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Okay. Well, prove us wrong, guys.
Yep.
Otherwise, no voting record to speak of and seem to be, out there in rallies supporting good American causes. So good in that book. Let's go to Scott Jensen. And let me try this for the first time, actually out of my mouth. I've only read it.
Good luck.
Putavan? Is it Putavan?
I have no
Wilkerson.
idea. No clue. I saw the announcement yesterday, but sorry, go read your
I
summary.
mean, yeah, that's one of your problems. That's gonna be a tough one. You can go read April's, Jesse's spin on this. We've talked enough about Scott Jensen.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, do we need to rehash? The guy's been on both sides of the issue on abortion and guns, and He's wishy-washy. He was really good on medical freedom during COVID, which I praise him for. He's a
Yep.
very nice individual if you ever get a chance, but he tests the wind. He's not strong-willed. He got clobbered by Tim Walz in 2022. I don't really know anyone that I can think of that's, like, really pushing the narrative that Scott Jensen has to be the candidate. He's the one to win,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
polling is showing that right now.
Totally. I totally agree. Principled that he has no principles. Scott Jensen licks his finger and sticks it in the air and figures out where he's going. So you can't count on the guy. Viable, maybe he'll obviously raise some money.
He
People
has
who
actually it said he raised 389,000, so
yeah,
that has been
he'll
reported.
raise money, but his problem, and I met with Scott back in like August, like 2 days after he announced. And he said he's not going to do anything for pro life. He said, even if we have a trifecta and the legislature puts a pro life bill in front of him, he said, I will not sign it. So he has like completely abandoned the pro life movement. Um, he said he's not going to sign the Never Again bill. He said he sees no issues with more gun control. I asked about taxes because he said you were going to repeal the income tax, and that's kind of my issue. I hate taxes. And I asked, "Are you gonna like fight for repealing the income tax still?" And he said, "Oh God, no, 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 I'm not doing that." And so I'm like, "Well, what on earth are you even running on then? I don't understand your platform." So, and I told him, "Look, man, you're losing a ton of support. Like I'm in all sorts of different groups and chats and text messages, and I know you are too. And people are just hating on the guy." And I told him, "Look, if you want to hold on to your base, I would sign the Never Again pledge. Like that'll mean something, and that's your core group." But he's like, "Nope, not doing that either." So yeah, Scott lost big lead to Walls before. He stands for nothing. Like I don't know anything the guy you can actually count on him to stand on. So he doesn't excite me, that's for sure. And he kind of got pissy when I met with him and stormed off.
Okay, so we got a couple of Rumble rants. Let's go to the first one. It's a friendly request of a new ticket. Brad says, not sure why you two aren't on the ticket. So, Mort, let's announce it right now. You're going to be running for governor, me as your lieutenant governor, so I don't actually have to work, but I can still get a paycheck like Peggy. And we're running on the campaign of in the fraud, give the money back to you, save the boundary waters. How does that sound, Mort?
I think it sounds amazing, and I think there's such an obvious lane for people, but it's people aren't taking this obvious lane of yeah, not only like kill the fraud, but I want a refund. I think everybody wants
Yes,
a refund. If you blew $19 billion or 9 billion or whatever the hell it is, I want you to cut government by that much and return my money. Oh, and long term, I want you to end the income tax so I can keep my money like in perpetuity. But until a candidate, I think that would appeal to independents that are pissed off that they blew so much of their money that, hey, our plan, we're giving it back to you. We're going to
right.
cut the spending of government. We're going to refund it to the people. But there's nobody running on that.
$8,000 back in your pocket. That's what we could do if we shrunk government by $20 billion, which would just take it back to be for the Democrat trifecta. And I don't know why Lisa Damuth and these weak-kneed Republicans are, basically, you know, just furthering the Democrat inflated budget. That's what they did,
Yeah.
and they're locking it in. And we would stop that. We would give it back to the people, and at the same time reducing taxes or eliminating them, I guess. Bad Ed Harry says, rant for Jake's Babbel account. What is Babbel? Is that another? Am I not familiar with that social media? What is Babbel? Should I be looking into Babbel? I don't know what that means.
I have no idea what Babel is.
Maybe it's a conservative new social media.
Did he
Maybe I
mean
should know
grinder?
that. Shut up. Yeah, there you go. This would be the most comical campaign. All right, let's go. And LK to live says Lindell has said he'd return taxpayers' funds. We'll get to that because he was on the show. Let's go back to the list. We've got Jeff Johnson, not to be confused with Jeff Johnson, the former Hennepin County commissioner and two-time governor candidate for GOP. This Jeff Johnson is a former St. Cloud City Council member and Stearns County assessor. He's got some pretty good issues that he's talked about, lowering taxes and trying to block the mass migration of Somalis into St. Cloud. But he doesn't seem to have a strong or serious campaign, and also refuses to sign the AFREL's pledge, the Never Again pledge. Any thoughts on Jeff Johnson? This Jeff Johnson.
Yeah, I'm so torn with Jeff because when I was in office, he was a huge supporter. He would call me, we would shoot the shit, and super likable guy. And I know he had a pretty stiff spine when he served, I think, on city council in St. Cloud. Um, so I think he has a backbone. I think the guy's got political courage. I think he'd be principled. I do think he's trying to get too cute, and I talked to him about signing the Never Again pledge. He's like way overthinking it. And it's like, dude, this is a signal to the people that you're going to do meaningful stuff. And he's just like, his mind is so wrapped around the axle on it. Um, so then the whole viability question, like Jesse wrote up, I don't know how much money he's raising. It'll be interesting to see if he files, because of course you don't even have to create a campaign committee until you raise or spend more than $750. So, if he doesn't file a report here in the next couple of weeks, that would indicate he hasn't even raised or spent more than $750, which would
Mhm.
scream, I'm not a viable candidate.
Yeah, great point. All right, let's go to the next candidate. By the way, a lot of comments here. I tried posting it. Rad Tread says, let's write in Nas Reed. Boy, wouldn't that be a fan favorite here in Minnesota?
Yeah,
Just so I could deviate, there's so much sports news I don't bring up on here.
yeah.
Like Gable Stevenson was on Joe Rogan, great
Your
podcast.
Bears?
Our championship. Yeah, the Chicago Bears win. And by the way, I didn't even stay up for the second half because I was coaching basketball. The next day, I don't know, my basketball team won the championship, the Blaine
Oh,
Invitational. Hey, you know what?
mm,
But also this blockbuster trade that the Teals are talking about with possibly dealing Nas Reed. I can't imagine a worse thing for that organization to do than get rid of Nas Reed. That would be very unpopular with the people. All right, let's get off sports. I know you guys come here for politics. This is Patrick Knight. Patrick Knight is a Marine veteran who served for over 20 years. He retired as a lieutenant colonel. I believe he was a JAG officer. Okay, I'm pretty sure I got that correct. He is the CEO of Weymouth Farms and sells products such as organic nuts, seeds, and dried fruits. The business appears to be successful as online estimates of their annual revenue ranges from 15 million to 30.5 million. Unfortunately for conservatives, Knight donated Dean Phillips and another Democrat just 2 days after January 6th. He's also given $1,800 to globalist Rhino Tom Emmer over the years, as seen in previous AFL reporting. Knight's campaign video launch was bland, non-controversial, and milquetoast and his campaign priorities are so generic that they could be the platform of any swing district candidate of either party. He did go to the Morrison County GOP debate, so you can watch that on stage. But I mean, it's a crowded stage, and I don't even know. It was like an hour long. I don't think they even got into issues really on that. But very well attended. Patrick Knight, what are your thoughts?
uh,
Okay, moving on. Next one.
Excellent. I mean, the dude is a total blank slate to me. No voting record, weird donations, principled, unlikely, viable, probably unlikely. Like, I don't see his campaign, at least with, Lisa and Kristen Robbins and some of these other candidates. You at least see some version of a campaign, even if it's just on social media. I don't see this guy doing anything. So he is like as close to a blank slate for me as any candidate could possibly be. So I can't hate on the guy. I certainly can't love on the guy. And it's really tough for me to love any political candidate who doesn't have a voting record to back it up. That to me is for what it's worth, and I know you operate like this. I don't care what spoken words a politician says. Like, it is
Yep.
meaningless to me. I want to know your actions. And if you want to earn my vote, you have to earn my vote. Like, I don't just give it to Team Red. You need to earn it. So I don't know. I don't know anything about the guy, but odds are he's probably bad news because 99% of politicians are.
Well, my sense is he's just kind of a good businessman, probably a good community member, decent dude. Probably would love to meet with him in a bar. You got to remember, I kind of live a double life. I live this life of politics. It's kind of been a full time thing for I don't know 8 years or something like that. Um, but I try to separate that from my life of, like, kids sports, coaching and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
'cause I'm very active in kids sports. Although I do find a lot of parents find out about me and, usually the ones that like it,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is good. But, I try to keep it separated because I don't think politics belongs there, and, I just think of that life over there, probably a decent guy, probably a good member of the
Yeah.
community. But
Probably.
I like, and I know you and I have had this conversation before. Our republic, I think a republic is actually toast. I'm really trying to fight for Minnesota at this point, local politics. I don't even know if I'm voting in presidential elections in the future. Like, I don't even think it matters with how bad they're handling things on Washington D.C. It's almost like it can't be saved. I hope it can be
Yeah.
saved. I hope I'm wrong. But Minnesota, we can literally make an impact. That's why actually we talks about going to caucus. You can make an impact at your county. You could definitely make an impact at your city council. So, you know, I think that our state is also in terrible trouble. And it's like, well, why do I care about a milquetoast community member? We need someone to save this damn thing with bold statements and bold moves and bold policy. And that's where guys like
Yeah.
this just I can't get behind him. I'm just not interested in that stuff.
Yeah, well, that's a great take because I haven't seen him do anything bold, and that's what I'm all about. Like, I've got a little plaque on my bookshelf over there that I had in my legislative office that says "Freedom lies in being bold," and that's kind of my biggest knock I have with most of the field is I don't hear any big bold ideas that are going to make people across the political spectrum go, "Yes, thank you, let's do that." Like all this affordability crisis and conversation and I've been saying it for years. If you want to make things more affordable, stop taxing the shit out of us. And suddenly
Mhm.
we got more money in our pockets and everything's more affordable. We don't need the government to do anything else than stop stealing our money. That would be ideal. And stop printing money at the federal level.
Yep, exactly. Andy Parrish Show says Jake should run. I almost became the college Dems chair when Jake and I were running UW River Falls, and that's actually a true story. We were so good at running the college Republicans at River Falls when we were there, 20 some years ago, that like the Dems were barely even a organization, and they had the elections, and we were threatening that we were all going to show up, and anyone could participate, and we could have become the Democrat chair. And there was a point where the teacher advisor was like, "You guys, please don't go to the Democrats. Just stay out of it."
That sounds like David Hand's campaign strategy for US Senate.
Oh my god, I should be doing more content on that. I totally forget about him running. What a moron. Um, oh my god, Jay Reeves says, "I bet we would have a good conversation over beer at Quinny's or turtles and Shakopee."
Ooh,
Yeah, Quinny's, sign me up.
well,
Actually, I
turtles,
would
I'm
rather
in.
well,
Quinny's
I'd
is
rather
too
go
far.
to the if
I
we're going to
don't
Quinny's, I'd rather go to the Q Pub. That's where the deep conversations have. Just go see
know.
my friend Janice over there. I love Janice to death.
You pub.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It's
I know
fun going
exactly what you're talking
yeah,
about.
Q Pub,
God
right?
bless Janice, but wow. Wow. Um,
Oh, man. I've had 17 great conversations with Janice recently. I don't know if most people get that one. All right, Brad Kohler is a former UFC heavyweight professional fighter and small business owner. Previously run for state senate, Congress, Hennepin County commissioner. We've had him on the show multiple times. I like Brad very much individually. We sorted out his former or his previous felony convictions. Got into that, talking about his campaign, raised more money than I was expecting. Um, but I think if he was to gain some steam, he would have problems with those that felony conviction, basically because it was with a minor. What was it? Seditious punishment of a minor, something like that. It's just not going to play well if he was to be a mainstream candidate. But he did sign the Never Again pledge. So there's that. And he did in front of our booth. Does always want to come on the show. Always wants to talk. And I always have like a soft spot in my heart for wrestlers and former fighters. So that's Brad Kohler. What are your thoughts?
similar, the principled lens, my gut, just speaking from the gut says, I bet he'd be pretty principled. Although, some of the comments he's made and Facebook lives or different videos I've seen online. He's kind of ran away on gun rights to a degree, and maybe he's walked that back. But um, by ability, it's how much did he say he raised?
Oh, good question. It's been a while. I want to say it might have been in the hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
already.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, he's got some personal baggage, but geez, doesn't everybody have personal baggage? It's just I honestly can't stand that little wrinkle. Like everybody's got something that happened in their life, but hearing it's with a minor, because I don't think I heard that before. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of like Brad. Like personally, he came to the booth, he signed the thing, the pledge, the never again pledge. Um, so I like the guy, and I think he can be principled. I guess my question has always been, how viable is this guy? And messaging, that's what I see. Like if you're listening, Brad, please figure out your messaging because I think it's pretty horseshit. When I see your Facebook stuff, it's always like 4 paragraphs, and it's like it or not, politics is a bumper sticker world, and if you can't communicate your message in a bumper sticker, it's tough to get that message out there. So that's my biggest concern from with him that I've seen is his messaging is pretty poor.
Okay. Next one, John, and I should know how to pronounce it because someone told me this. Is it Crean? Is that how you
I don't
pronounce it?
know. I don't know. He's emailed me.
Okay, he's gonna be on the show on Thursday. I did reach out. A lot of people have been pretty excited about him since the
Yeah.
Morrison County debate. So, and I did meet him at the Action for Liberty event. He's an Assembly of God Christian minister and is dedicated pro-life activist, which is really interesting. I'm definitely gonna ask him about this. His father was 6 years old when he had him. His father was born in 1892, and his mom was 50 years old when he was born. Youngest of 8 children, has grown up, I think, near the Iron Range, worked many different jobs, including working in the mines, driving trucks for UPS, being a commercial truck driver for 10 years. He actually messaged me after the Action for Liberty event and asked if he could come to the headquarters and sign the Never Again pledge, which he did. Jesse took it and they posted it online. What do you know about John?
Honestly, not much. He's emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm looking to run for governor." And he emailed my Action for Liberty account. I told him, "Hey man, I can't we can't do that stuff. We can't like electioneer. I can't give you guidance, but good luck with everything." And um but I've talked to Jesse about him. Jesse seems to think the guy's pretty principled and is aligned with certainly the liberty agenda and smaller government. I guess the question would be, is he able to get out there and fundraise? I mean, that's like the hardest thing for a lot of these people to do, especially if they're going to hire some expensive consultant that's going to want 6 figures. So I don't know what his campaign strategy is or what his messaging is going to look like, but I tell you what, and for all these candidates, as much as I'm probably sound like I'm hating on all of them, I'm an open book. I plan on being a state delegate, and I'm not sold on any of these people. So,
Mhm.
like, my challenge for these candidates is call me, email me. Like, I'd love to know more. Whether it's state auditor candidates or AG candidates, like I'm a wide open book. I'd love to chat with these folks, and including John.
Okay. Well, you guys will get a chance to hear from him. And if you want to hit us up with a question, we'll try to read it live on the air to John. We got him 1 o'clock on Thursday. And it looks like it's Kurheen, according to Respect for America. I assume that person knows what they're talking about. Let's go to Mike Lindell. Doesn't seem to need much of a introduction. I actually had Mike Lindell on our last show. It was a very fascinating interview. The guy's a man of many words, but a very interesting story from being a crack addict and really in addiction and really far gone to starting a very successful American manufacturing company. Like he didn't hit me until he said it. Like Trump wanted to meet with him in 2015 to learn about manufacturing pillows in the United States. And it's like, oh yeah, no one does that. Like
Yeah,
that is clearly something you go to China to do. And he's
yeah,
manufacturing pillows in Minnesota in the Twin Cities area.
yeah.
So you
And
can go check
Shakopee, right down the road.
there you go. You could go check that episode out. It's our last episode. Sign the Never Again pledge at Action for Liberty's event. Speaks very great on the Never Again pledge. I will say this, and I think a lot of people think this. He sounds like a crack addict businessman. He's not very disciplined on messaging. Okay.
Yeah.
And how will that, like, you know, people didn't think Trump stood a chance because he's a celebrity and he's
Mhm.
corny and all that stuff. But Trump was very good at messaging and could be disciplined. He goes off the rails sometimes, but could be disciplined. Mike seems to just be like wired differently than he's very entrepreneurial, and that seems to be hard for a lot of people. What are your thoughts on Mike?
Mike is like this enigma to me because, I've had good interactions, bad interactions. I mean, overall, I like Mike Lindell. Like I do. And I went to his cyber symposium in South Dakota 5 years ago. Giant waste of time. He just, he didn't have the goods on this election integrity stuff. And then they tried to say that that whole symposium was just a front because they had a spy and they were trying to sniff this spy out and smoke him out. And it was like, you have legislators from all 50 states here, and you're just wasting our time claiming you're trying to snuff out some, mole. So that was distasteful for me because it was like during Sturgis. And, like, I personally drove out to South Dakota during Sturgis when hotels are like $500 a night for like nothing. Um, but I think the base loves him. Obviously, he's aligned with Trump. I sleep on a My Pillow. I should
Mhm.
throw that out there. I do have a My Pillow on my bed. Um, so I think the guy is probably viable because he has huge name ID, biggest name ID out of the whole field on the Republican side, in my mind. And I think he's gonna raise money. I don't know his personal financial
He
situation. It
he he
sounds like it's
has
not.
actually raised a ton of money.
Has he?
Yeah, I think that might have been off record, so I'll leave it at that. But they'll report pretty soon.
Ganser asked if the pillows are comfortable. It's very comfortable. I've had it for 5 or 6 years. I love that pillow. Um, so I don't know, man. Mike's an interesting guy, and I think if this thing goes primary, I think he wins the primary. And I know some conservatives that I've told that to are like, "No, we can't let that happen because he has all these negatives against him and cannot win in a general." I actually think he probably has just as good of odds in winning a general, if not better, than most of the field. So I kind of throw him in that Trump category where he is loose lipped. He's not disciplined, but people love authenticity. So I love authenticity. I hate people getting up there giving the same speech 100 different times. It gets boring. It's dry. I don't believe the words that they say. So Mike, I think, has like a legit shot here.
Okay, I kind of agree with that. I think people are counting him out. Oh, he can't win. That's what I hear. They said that about Trump. I
Yeah.
mean, I hear it again. Now, no one is like Trump. I'll grant you that. But name ID is huge. There was a KSTP article or a poll that showed Philip Parrish was doing better than Kendall Qualls against Tim Walz, and this is many months ago. And Kendall Qualls, in my opinion, is probably the front runner right now in terms of a delegate pool. But he has no name ID outside of like the people that attend these like conventions and stuff. It's like you got to be like a really active Republican to know who he is. And
Yeah.
apparently, the name probably doesn't sound good to people when they're given the choice. So that's the one thing Mike Lindell has, and you can't discount that. That is important. So
Yep.
fair point, Mort. Next one, Chris Madel. You can tell Jesse's thoughts on him by that photo. Madel's an attorney that gained fame through his representation of Trooper Ryan Lundgren in the case concerning the shooting of Ricky Cup. By the way, folks, I tried keeping the show within an hour. There's 13 candidates. We're doing our best. I don't feel like we're going too far and rambling. So hopefully you'll stick with us here. If you're watching after the fact, just follow the end. But that's just how many. We don't control this. This is how many candidates are signed up. So that was, the case of shooting Ricky Cobb, who sped off in a traffic stop. Mado's, and by the way, I gotta say, Chris Madel seems like a really good attorney. Mado's governor campaign has had a rocky start, considering many conservatives wrote him off as soon as they learned that Madel is a big-time Democrat donor. Even going back to John Kerry, seen in previous AFL reporting, Madel has donated $5,500 to Walz. By the way, maxed out after the lockdown orders to Walz. $8,900 to Joe Biden or his PAC, and $8,800 to Amy Klobuchar, to name a few. Madel has argued that his donations to Democrats helped free his clients, which sounds like a corrupt pay-to-play scheme and also nonsensical. A Biden donation or a Dean Phillips donation or a Steve Simon donation help free his legal clients? How would that make any sense? By the way, I don't think he's had to answer that question. Maybe we should have him on the show. I doubt he'll do it, but like that is a valid question. What did he mean by that statement?
Mhm.
Um, but he did show up to the Morrison County GOP forum. It does seem like he's, getting some kind of traction amongst the base. He does seem to take he does seem to be a lot more bold than some of these weak-kneed Republicans. I do think it's interesting he remains Alpha News's lawyer. I think that was just announced on something. What was that? They announced him as like representing on something, which Alpha News, what the hell are you guys doing? You're an independent news organization. You can't have a candidate be your lawyer. That seems insanity. So he's very tied to Alpha News. But he says some pretty good things, seems to actually have the most convincing case actually pursuing fraud of all the candidates. What are your thoughts on this guy?
Yeah, I guess I'll keep this theme like viable, principled. The principle to me is a giant question mark. And you donate that much money to Democrats, how are you going to remain a principled conservative? That's the most alarming thing. Viability, he's probably sounds fairly viable. And you know what I do like about him, although again, the words that come out of politicians' mouths shouldn't really mean much to people, but he's more of a firebrand than most of the candidates. Um, so I do like that. But how much does he mean those things? Who knows? So to me, he's another. I kind of throw him and Patrick McKnight in the same category as just two people. They're private sector and want to get into the government sector. And what is their, what's their goal in doing so? Is it really to like reduce the size and scope of government and restore liberties here, or is this just a resume builder or something else they want to do in life? And I have a hard time personally getting over all the money, tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats.
Yeah.
And he even doubled down on that pay to play scheme. We called him out on that right away. I think as an initial press conference, he kind of talked about it, and he talked about it a week or two ago, and he just doubled down and was like saying, yeah, that's what you have to do. And it's like, gosh, if and maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. But if he is, then Minnesota is in a much more disgusting place than I even realized.
Well, if he is, then explain it more to us people so that we end that program and you stop it. But I don't understand how giving to some of these Democrats does it. Like you're like you got to explain that one. That one is interesting
Yeah,
because it
you're gonna
sounds
help.
like it's very corrupt if you're giving to
Right,
like
it
Amy
sounds
Klobuchar.
crazy corrupt. You're gonna
Right.
donate to Tim Walz to get reelected in 2022 and then run against him 4 years later? Like, I don't know. And people
Yeah.
make and it's fair, probably someone will say it in the comments here that, "Well, hey, Trump used to, donate to Democrats." And it's like, "Okay, well, fair point, but I don't know. It's just the recency of it. It just screams very strange to me. Principled Mort Brad says principled, he's a lawyer. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point, Brad.
And by the way, Trump was wrong for doing that too, so it's
Yeah,
not like Trump
yeah,
made it
true.
okay. Phil Parrish, administrator for Divine Mercy Catholic School and also has a teaching background, is a Navy veteran who reached the rank of lieutenant commander. He's run for office several times, including U.S. Senate, governor, Image GOP chair, and SOS briefly. Parrish is a nice dude, seems pretty conservative in my opinion. I just don't feel like he's going to mount a ton of a campaign. He did sign AFRL's Never Again pledge. He's got some grassroots
Mhm.
support, no doubt about it. What are your thoughts on Philip?
I think Phil peaked in 2018 in that gubernatorial race. I mean, I remember that state convention. He had a pretty big following. Then he ran for like GOP chair, like for a hot second, and then backed out, and then suddenly was back in at that convention. It was very strange. I will say Phil has the most interesting campaign in my view. His AI videos are hysterical, and I don't mean that as a compliment, Phil. Um, like, just get a real phone, go out and cut videos for God's sake. Stop pretending you're Rocky Balboa or James Bond. Like, people want to know the real person, not whoever it is you want to be. Like, I think I've seen him as Indiana Jones, as the Terminator, as like
Okay, let's play this here. This
RoboCop. Yeah,
is this one of them?
I'm sure it is. He's got hundreds, I think, like tons and tons of these things.
Well, I mean, that might be AI. This is Incredible Hulk behind him. I know I've probably seen these. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, straight out Central Casting. Let's just say Philip Parrish does not look like
No, no.
that.
Yeah. So I think Phil's kind of a character. I do think he's a good candidate in there for like the grassroots folks to kind of keep other candidates honest. But I mean, principled, maybe better chance than others. Viable? I just don't see it. I
He's
don't know
doing
how much
better than
money
Kendall
he's
Qualls.
raising. What's that?
He's doing better than Kendall Qualls according to KSTP's poll.
I know it's shocking to see that people like him more than Kendall Qualls, who's probably raised he's probably raised more money than anybody else, and I don't have insight to it. I'm just guessing that he's probably raised, I bet, close to $500,000 when that report comes out. He's kind of the leading. I think he's the DC pick, not to get too far ahead of us here, but
No, that's fair. This is
oh, there he is.
Kendall, a U.S. Army veteran, previous healthcare executive for Johnson Johnson, ran for governor in 2022. Lost the endorsement and didn't run in the primary. Um, he's he's been all over the place, donated and supported good candidates. Also, went against Royce White and supported, as as Jesse writes, him Joe Frazier for U.S. Senate. Um, he's changed his position on emergency powers 3 times on his website. This is an image. This I remember making this image back in 2022. He had this big mailer that all of us would like. This is what Kendall Qualls would do with Tim Walz's mask mandate. And then you just look up his campaign and you see him all over, and especially outside campaigning with a stupid cloth mask on. So it's just like, well, dude, you don't really believe that stuff, do you? Because like, look what you're doing. Like, you're saying one thing, but you quite frankly are shown many times not, believing that. So it seems like he's a chameleon in that regard. And very unimpressive, speech giving and media and stuff like that. Now, with that being said, has stuck with it and seems to have like the organizational ability to amount to campaign, and I would think he's probably the front runner right now in terms of delegates. Is that your opinion too?
Yeah, I think he is, and that's not like some endorsement for the guy. As I understand it, he's like the DC pick. The guy was getting paid like what was it, $300,000 a year through some nonprofit, and it gives the appearance that he was like on the bench for the last 4 years, waiting for the next gubernatorial race, so
Which
we
is
could
basically
launch
what the
this next
Democrats
pick.
do, by the way. It's what a lot of Democrats do. They got a lot of nonprofits that put these guys on the payroll to kind of keep them fresh or keep them in the legislature. It's actually a
Yeah.
huge, like a lot of this doesn't get talked about. Maybe we should do a show on this, the organizational structure of the left versus the right in Minnesota. But yeah, I hear what you're saying on that. That's a good point. Um, I mean, he will sign the Never Again pledge. He
No,
seems
he
to be
won't. I agree on his speaking ability. He's pretty boring, pretty dry, and some of this stuff is like kind of irrelevant in the big picture of things. But I'm just talking about what gets me excited. Like
yeah.
Trump changed the game. He changed the game forever. Whether you love Trump, hate Trump, I love how authentic he is. I have been incredibly disappointed in his presidency, and it's let's be honest. Well, this is an opinion, not a fact, I guess, but I think the Trump second term is effectively over. Like all these Republicans in Congress are going to be way more concerned about their reelection than they are about doing anything
Mhm.
significant for us. So in my mind, Trump had like 12 months and that ended. And
Yep.
odds are Democrats are going to take the House, maybe the Senate, and Trump's going to be neutered. So they had last year to do big stuff. Like he teased us repealing the federal income tax. It would be the greatest stimulus package in the history of stimulus packages, but it's not happening. Um, but anyway, that's I don't see that in Kendall. He doesn't strike me as authentic. Some of his emails he's sent actually seem really interesting to me, where he gets much more hardcore and in your face. And again, that's what I like. That's not what everybody else likes. But that's very, kind of like the A4L brand. And certainly my personal brand when I served was you've got to be loud, bold, do big stuff because that's how we tug on this whole government apparatus, not doing bullshit half measure stuff that doesn't excite anybody.
Right on. All right, last one, Kristen Robbins. This one should go pretty quick. I think her campaign effectively ended when Damuth got in, and that's why they took some pot shots at her. She comes right from the establishment, recruited actually to run in her House seat. Didn't abide by the endorsement, ran against Brad Ganser, aligned with all the bad Republican establishment at the Capitol, like a bad voting record, was part of neocon Nikki Haley's campaign structure in Minnesota. She's getting support from Haley. She's a 41.67% score in the 2025 A4L scorecard. Not only would she not sign the Never Again bill, she created the fake Never Again bill, and supported things like Keith Ellison's budget, the health omnibus bill, and giving our state $700 million of debt, to name a few of many different things. Thoughts on Kristen Robbins?
All right, I'll stick with this. Principled, nope, doesn't have it, never will have it in my mind. Viable, I agree. As soon as Damuth got in there, she was gone. I was laughing at the state central straw poll, and I think she had like one vote or two votes. It was like next to nobody was backing Kristen Robbins. So I think her campaign is effectively over. Um, but she's probably going to stay involved and do what I was talking about earlier of let's try to strike a deal, right? Just like Mike Murphy struck a deal with Scott Jensen at state convention 4 years ago. So Kristen Robbins will probably like try to hold her delegates hostage and then exchange, because this is going to be a tough endorsement. How do you get to 60% with 13 people? It's the likelihood of an endorsement is so slim. But I could see her saying, "Hey, you know what? Hey, Lisa, how about you make me whatever Health and Human Services Commissioner, and I'll tell my delegates I endorse you and try to get you across the finish."
Mm-hmm.
That's likely how that thing's going to end.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Boy, we'll have to cover that when it comes up, all the moves that will happen at a convention. That's a great point. All right, let's get to before I forget, we'll be live with our post show for all our premium insiders. If you're not a premium insider, you can click on the link I just posted there. It gives you access to all of our post show content, supports our media project, which we're trying to keep independent. And bring you news that you won't get. You definitely will not get anywhere else. If you're watching after the fact, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us on the top, or on Rumble, just click on join us. I've got a friend of the show zooming in the post show to give us an update on CD7. I'm pretty excited about that. Some big things happening
you're
there.
not going to tell us who it is?
Susan, that's her name.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Susan. Susan's my guest. I should have cleared it with her. I guess she probably wouldn't mind. She's in the comments section, so
Well, you gave a first name. There's lots of Susans out there. I mean,
there's a lot of
sure,
Susans.
we all know who you're talking about, but
Well, not everyone, obviously. Brad
Yeah.
says, "Great candidate rundown. Thank you, Jesse." Jesse. Oh, Jesse.
Where's
We did
Jeff?
it. Jesse wrote the article, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
Jesse won't do the show. All right. I just wanted to bring one thing up before we go to the post show with Susan. You want to talk about share a story that happened when you were at the Capitol. You were talking about this article that just
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is
so let me
interesting.
set this up. Walter Hudson defends radical left Dem as reasonable against conservative criticism. You guys probably saw this video right here. The Border Patrol commander, title that Trump gave him, is having a conversation with Susan, Representative Feist. So I can't think of her first name. Feist. What is it? Sandra Feist. A.K. Kamar says, fun fact, Representative Feist was the author of the tampon and boys bathroom bill that Walz signed, earning him the nickname Tampon Tim. She's one of the more radical Democrat state legislators here in Minnesota. I'm most sad to see that she changed her hairstyle. And Walter says, actually, I hate to break it to you, but Sandra is actually one of the more reasonable ones. I can actually have a productive conversation with her. Modify your assessment of the whole accordingly. So, of course, that caught the attention of Jesse, who just loves Walter to death. But you brought up a very interesting story, and I wanted you to share it because,
Yeah.
yeah, you
Well,
think this is a fool's errand here.
it's just so ridiculous the way these people think. Yeah, so in that same story, Walter refers to Sandra Feist as a friend, and I think we've got that quoted in there. And that's just what made me chuckle this morning as I was reading the story and getting Jesse some feedback was these Republicans, they get in office and like Walter, oh, I'm going to try to build bridges. Walter tweeted the other day, you know what? I'm done playing nice. I've been trying to build bridges with these damn Democrats for 3 years, but now I'm done with it. And it reminded me of the last day of session 2022 when we had like, I don't know, 32 House members that were retiring or running for higher office. But essentially, they're leaving the state house and they all got to do their little retirement speeches and as if like most people even care. And Tim Miller, who was a state rep out of Kandiyohi County, I think is how you
Yeah.
say it.
Yep.
And he was part of the new House Republican caucus. He was like, the most moderate member of the new House caucus. And he stood there on the House floor and was thanking all of these Democrats for being his friend and having such a great relationship with these guys. And over the years, they've been tight and on and on and on. And I go to lunch afterwards. I'm sitting in some patio in a St. Paul bar restaurant. And all of these Democrat House members, like the whole damn posse caucus, the people of color and indigenous caucus, they come out and they sit like 15 feet away from me. And I could hear them. And they were just ridiculing Tim Miller and saying how stupid this guy is. This idiot thinks that we're his friend. What a dumbass. Like they were just railing against him. And that just reminded me of Walter Hudson thinking he's going to make friends with Democrats in the state house and how that is somehow going to get something done for the conservative movement. While at the same time, Walter Hudson bashes you and me and Action for Liberty, organizations that are actually trying to chop down the size of government. We're enemies while he's building bridges and friendships with Democrats who I guarantee don't give two shits about the guy and they're laughing at him behind his back.
Well, why I thought that was so interesting is we talk so much on the show about how it's one big club and we're not in it, and they really are. It was really evident when Melissa Hortman was assassinated that all these Republicans, including like Pat Garofalo, like uncontrollably crying on Fox 9 in an interview. It's like these guys. Well, I'm going to rephrase what I used to say. These guys are friends with them, but really, the reality is even worse. They think they're friends with them.
Yeah.
And it actually makes a ton of sense because it's like these Republicans extend this olive branch of friendship to them, and then essentially why it matters to us is because it moderates them and gives like the Democrats these deals. And meanwhile, the Democrats don't give a shit about them. They're
No.
just getting everything that they want. And
Right,
that's
and there's a huge lesson to be learned here. Democrats are outplaying Republicans by pretending to be their friends and to care about them. And look, for the people on this is super important. The Republicans are doing the same thing to you. They want you to perceive them as friends because you know why? If you've got a good friend who did something you really don't like, voted the wrong way, it's really tough to hold your friends accountable. So this whole thing we've been told and you've seen it, on different movies and different things. We teach it in our classes. If you want a friend in politics, get a dog. And that's no freaking joke. That's not a joke. That's a fact. There are no friends in politics. It's a silly way to go. So the Democrats outplaying the Republicans, and the Republicans are trying to use the same tactics against the conservative activists to let them off the hook when they stab them in their back with their voting record.
right on. All right, Mort, I am sorry for keeping you 15 minutes over, but there were just actually too many freaking candidates that we couldn't cover this in an hour.
Yeah,
So
no
thank you
worries.
for giving me an extra 15 minutes. I know your time is precious. People can go to actionforliberty.com, learn more about the great organization he leads. I'm very partial to this as the founder and feel like we've got a great president. So thank you for what you're doing with Action for Liberty.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll catch you later.
All right, and we're going to go to our post show in just a second. Thank you to Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota, for sponsoring this show and many of our content that we're putting out there. We're going to be doing way more videos. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. All Premium Insiders here in the post show. We're going to have our special guest, Susan. It's out. She's going to talk a little bit about CD7, someone that knows a lot about it and is a real tireless fighter for the cause of liberty and anti-establishment causes, which is really great, which is what's going on in CD7 right now. It's really important. So if you guys are Premium Insiders, make sure you head over there to Locals. If you're not, go ahead and sign up. It's big support for this show and what we bring to the table. Thank you guys so much, and we will see all you that aren't Premium Insiders back on Thursday when we interview John Curheen. I think it's Curheen. I'll get it right by Thursday. Thank you very much, and God bless.